Stop. Lay down everything they are carrying for the next few minutes and rest here with him. The list of things waiting on them, the questions circling their mind, the worry that follows them from room to room. Lay it down for now. He is not here to add more noise to their day. He is here to speak to the one place inside them that has been waiting quietly and patiently for a long time. He knows exactly where they are. He knows the weight pressing on their shoulders before they even open their eyes in the morning. He knows the questions they carry that they have never said out loud to another soul. He knows the fear they hide behind a steady voice and a calm face. None of it is hidden from him, a soft melody, and none of it ever was. This moment did not find them by accident. The music plays. He is not speaking to everyone today. He is speaking to them in this exact place, at this exact hour, because he has something to say that their spirit has been waiting to hear. They must not rush these words, nor let their mind wander toward the next task before this one is finished. Let what he is saying settle into the rubber day, deep places where their real decisions are made. There is something stirring inside them right now, and they feel it even when they cannot name it. It rises in the quiet hour before the day begins, and it returns again at night when the noise finally, when things fade. The heart has nowhere left to hide. There is a restlessness, a pressure, a feeling that something is unfinished. They have tried to outrun it by staying busy. They have tried to bury it under tasks and conversations and the small distractions of an ordinary day, but it keeps returning to them. That is not their imagination working against them. That is God's voice refusing to let them settle for less than he has for them. He is not willing to let them miss what is on the other side of the step they keep avoiding. His beloved must hear this clearly. There are seasons when waiting is exactly right. He has called them into stillness before. He has hidden them away in quiet places where nobody else could see them, and he did his deepest work in them. There, he deepened their roots in those hidden years, so when the winds blew, they would not fall. He shaped their heart in the dark, refining what mattered most. Those seasons were never wasted. They were holy and belonged to him. But the season they are standing in now is not one of those seasons. This is not a season of waiting. This is a season of movement. He has already done the building. He has already done the shaping. Now he is asking them to take what he placed inside them and use it. The restlessness they feel is not confusion. It is a calling. Listen. The discomfort they cannot shake is not a warning. It is proof. They have outgrown the ground they have been standing on. They were not meant to stay there forever. They were meant to move, and it is time. A silent seed rests beneath the soil. For a long time, nothing is visible. The ground looks empty and undisturbed, as though nothing is happening at all. Yet underneath the roots are reaching deeper. Life is building in the dark, unseen and unhurried. Then comes the moment the seed can no longer stay buried. It breaks open, pushing upward toward the light, even though breaking open costs the seed everything it has. That moment of breaking is never comfortable. It was never meant to be, yet it is necessary, because no seed was ever created to remain buried forever. It was created to rise and become something alive, something that feeds the ground around it. They are that seed, his child. He has been growing roots in them that run deeper than they know. He has been preparing something real inside them in the hidden place. And now he is calling them upward, not because rising will be easy, but because rising is what they were made for. They were not made to stay buried in the ground of their own hesitation. They were made to grow, to break open, and to bear fruit that blesses every life that touches theirs. They already sense what he is asking them to do. He did not write it in the sky for them to find. He placed it quietly, in their thoughts, in the pressure on their heart, in the quiet thoughts that keep returning when all other voices fade. Perhaps it is a decision they have been pondering for months, or perhaps it is a difficult conversation requiring their absolute honesty, or perhaps a hope they buried because someone once claimed it was far too much for someone like them. Yet the Lord placed it there with divine purpose. The Lord is precise, never acting by accident. They must not look away. They must face it directly, bringing it into His light right before Him and being honest about why they have been running away. He does not ask them to fear what He is about to say, but rather to be ready to receive it, for His offering is not a heavy burden. It is the exact thing their heart has been longing to carry. Hear this now, the waiting is over. He not expect them to have it all figured out before they move. He only asks them to trust Him enough to take the step, even without the complete picture in front of them. That is what true faith has always looked like, not certainty, but deep trust. He is with them in every step of it, from the smallest act of courage to the fifely I too, very end. They respond, I hear you. If these words are reaching the Spirit in this moment, let us examine honestly why they have been delaying. It is not always because they are acting with careful wisdom. Sometimes, if they are willing to admit it, the real reason is fear. And fear is clever. It rarely says, I am afraid. It puts on finer clothes, calling itself patience. It calls itself discernment. It claims, I am just waiting for more clarity. But what is really happening is fear sitting quietly on the throne of their decisions, wearing a costume, so convincing they stopped questioning it long ago. The Lord is not angry with them for being afraid. He knows their history. He knows the moments they were brave and it cost them. He knows the times they trusted and were let down, the times they stepped forward and the ground did not feel as solid as they hoped. He was there for every one of them. He watched the walls go up around their heart, one brick at a time, until stepping forward began to feel like stepping into danger. He calls them beloved. He did not bring them this far to let fear write the rest of their story. The walls they built to protect themselves have also been keeping out the very things He has been trying to give them. He does not want them to live inside that fortress forever. He wants to lead them out. He wants to heal what is still sore in them and restore what was broken. But that healing rarely happens while they stay hidden. Sometimes courage comes after the step, not before it. Sometimes confidence is built in the doing, not in the waiting until they feel ready enough to begin. Some of what they have been avoiding is not even large. It only feels large because they have carried it in silence for so long. A decision left unmade, a truth left unspoken, a boundary they keep promising themselves they will set tomorrow. None of these. Many think miracles are required to begin. They only require a willing yes. The Lord does not demand perfect plans. He simply asks for one honest step taken today in the direction He has already shown. He also speaks directly to the constant comparisons being made daily. Believers watch as others move forward, starting things, speaking the brave words they are too afraid to speak, and instead of inspiring them, it winds up shrinking them. They assume those others possess something they do not. Greater confidence, more talent, some extra. The measure of grace that somehow skipped over them. But the truth is, most of those people they are comparing themselves to, indeed, are not moving because they possess more than them. They move simply because they decided, finally, to stop waiting until they felt prepared. That is the single difference, not special talents or anointing, just a choice. And every believer is capable of making that same decision today. What the Lord placed within them carries their name and no one else's. It is shaped by their story, their voice, their pain, their particular way of seeing the world. Nobody else can carry what he built in them, and no one else can do it the way they were designed to do it. When they sit on the sidelines, telling themselves someone else is more qualified, they are not being humble. They are believing a lie that keeps them small in a life he designed to be wide and full. So they must stop comparing paths to anyone else's journey. They need to focus on what he placed in their own hands. That is where their focus belongs. The Lord speaks of a river. When it flows, it is alive. Fish swim in it. Birds drink. Every living thing nearby is blessed by its current. But once a blockage stops the water, the flow pools in one spot. It turns stagnant, murky, and then lifeless. What once brought healing and vitality to the dry land becomes a place they all avoid. Believers were made to flow like water, not to stall until they grow stagnant. God put his Spirit inside them to pour outward blessing other lives and bringing hope to dry ground that has waited for their unique gift. When fear or delay stops what he intended to build through them, their inner spirit begins to feel exactly like that. Stagnant water, heavy, dull, and far from the joy they remember. This heavy burden is no mystery. It is simply the sign they were made to move, but have been standing still. So today the Lord asks them to clear obstacles, opening up the areas they have been holding back, letting what he placed inside them start moving again, going somewhere, doing what it was always meant to do. The moment they do, they will feel that aliveness returning, that sense of being fully themselves, again, fully in step with the Creator who made them. They must remember this. The flow does not wait for perfect circumstances to begin. Perfect. A river never stops until every stone in its path is cleared. It flows, carving a path right around whatever stands directly in front of it. It moves, and that very movement shapes the ground it travels. That is how he works with them. Gentle music. He does not wait for their lives to become smooth before he guides them. He asks them to start moving so that together they can shape the path as they go. They recall moments in their lives when they felt truly alive. Were they the safest, most certain moments, or were they the ones requiring the greatest leaps of faith? Most believers, when they are honest, discover that the most vibrant times were never the safest. Honest. They were moments that demanded stepping into the unknown because he was calling. He does not meet them only on the comfortable shore. He meets them during the walk across the water, not in the safety of knowing each detail in advance, but in the faithful act of trusting the one who he already knows. He invites them back to that sacred place today, back to the place where their hearts are fully engaged because they are fully trusting, back to the place where every simple morning carries true meaning because they are moving with him towards something that truly matters. They declare, I receive this, if their heart is open to what he is building inside them. Now let us look at who they are, because beneath every single delay, every hesitation, every fear of failure, there is a deeper question quietly humming in the background. Are they really someone worth using for something this meaningful? Are they truly capable, worthy, and equipped for what they sense they are being called to? And if they step forward and it falls apart, what will that say about them? That question about their worth is one of the heaviest weapons used against their obedience when they are not settled in who he says they are. Every risk feels like a test of their value. Every step forward feels like a trial they might fail, one that could prove something terrible about their worth. So they protect themselves. They stay where it is safe, because staying back at least means no one can prove them unworthy of their assignment. It feels like wisdom. It is actually a prison built from a lie. Yet the Lord asks them to place a portion of what they have, something of real weight upon the altar of this work, willingly, as gold laid on the scales of this calling. Let it be a seed sown into deep water, an offering set on, stone not held back in fear. This is proof that their trust rests in His hands to provide, and that their hearts no longer cling to lack. What they release in faith does not leave their lives. It moves ahead of them into the harvest He is preparing. They must hear this truth and let it settle into the very foundation of how they see themselves. Their worth was never attached to their performance. Their value was never determined by their success rate. Their identity was settled before they took a single step, before they were even born, written into existence by the Creator who made them and called them His own. They are loved not for what they do, but because of whose they are. That truth never changes with outcomes. It is fixed. It is eternal. It is far more secure than anything the world can offer or take away. So when fear whispers that failing now would prove they were never really called, or never truly gifted, or not who they hope to be, they have an answer. Their worth is not on the table when they take that step. Their identity is never at risk when they obey. They are not stepping forward to prove anything to anyone. They are stepping forward to trust the Lord, who already knows exactly who they are. When that truth becomes real in them, not just something they know in their mind, but something settled deep in their spirit, everything shifts. The risk no longer carries the same terrifying weight. Failure stops being the worst thing that could happen, because failure does not define them. Rejection still hurts, but it no longer crushes them, because their worth was never in the hands of those doing the rejecting, and obedience becomes much lighter, easier, more natural, because they are no longer carrying the impossible burden of proving their worth through their results. They are simply saying yes to God and living from a place of security, knowing who He says they are, letting that truth settle deep right within them, knowing they are His child. They are loved, called, and fully equipped, not because they earned it, but because He chose them. And what He chooses, He equips. What He equips, He covers. And what He covers, He carries through to completion. His followers are never in this alone. They never have been and never will be. The Lord wants to address something practical about the way He leads them, because one of the main things that keeps people stuck for a long time is a misunderstanding about how much clarity He gives before asking them to move. Many imagine that if He were calling them, He would make the path so clear that no room would remain for doubt. They expect a complete map before they take that first step, but that is rarely how He works with those He loves. Consider Abraham. God told him to leave his country, his people, and his father's household to go to the land He would show him. Not the land He was already showing him in full detail, but the land He would reveal along the way. So he went. He did not receive the full address before he began to walk. He received a command and a promise, then had to step out before the rest was revealed. He went not knowing where he was going. That is faith. That is the trust the Lord still honors today, and the trust He asks of His people. He rarely gives the entire map at once, knowing that if they had it, they might try to walk without seeking Him at every step. The partial clarity they are so often waiting to outgrow is not God withholding. It is protection. The Lord invites His children to stay close. It is His way of ensuring they keep their hand in His, because they need His voice for every next step. Walking together matters as much to Him as actually arriving. Perhaps more, they should stop waiting for the full picture before they move. They should step forward with the clarity they already possess, because the step after that only becomes visible once they are standing where the first one leads. He reveals the road as they walk it, and the only way to see what comes next is to keep moving toward him. This is also why the uncertainty they have been waiting to disappear is probably not going to vanish before they move. That uncertainty is not a warning sign. It is the normal texture of faith. It is what it feels like to trust him with information they do not yet have. He is completely trustworthy with that information. He has never once been wrong. He has never once been late. He has never once led someone forward in genuine trust and then abandoned them in the middle of the road. His record is faithful, and their trust can rest on that history, even when their feelings are not yet settled. He speaks to his children about time, because what looked like a delay in their life was never a denial. He was working even when they could not see it. They thought the door stayed shut because he had forgotten them, but he had not. He was arranging things on the other side of that door that they could not yet carry. People who were not ready, timing that had not yet lined up. Certain pieces had to fall into place before they could walk through. Any season that seemed wasted to them was a season God still moved in. Consider a field left lying fallow for a season. To anyone passing by, it looks abandoned. Nothing is growing. Nothing seems to be happening at all. But the soil is resting, and rest is not the same as neglect. The ground is recovering its strength so that what is planted next will not wither from shallow roots. The Lord lets parts of their life lie fallow on purpose, not because he lost interest in the harvest, but because he was protecting the soil that harvest would need. There is also a foundation being laid right now in ground they cannot see. Everyone knows how it works when something is being built. The parts that take the longest, the parts requiring the most careful work are always buried beneath the surface. The parts no one will ever see or admire once the structure stands, but without them, nothing above the ground could hold. God has been doing that exact kind of work in them. Long, quiet, unseen labor laid deep, enough that what he builds on top of it will never shake when the storms come, looking for a reason to knock it down. So let peace settle into the place where panic has been living. They do not have to understand every piece of the timeline to trust the Lord who is holding it. Indeed, they do not have to see the whole structure to trust the foundation being laid. True peace is not the absence of unanswered questions. It is the presence of a steady hand they have decided to trust even while their questions still remain. He is that steady hand. He has never once dropped what he was carrying for them, and he will not start now. It is time to consider the people around them, because sometimes the reason they delay obedience is not only internal. Sometimes it is relational. Perhaps there are people in their lives who, when they shared something stirring within them, answered with doubt or a long practical list of reasons it would not work. Their words mixed with their own doubts and built a quiet case for why staying safe was the wise and responsible thing to do. Or perhaps there are people they are afraid to disappoint, people whose approval has carried more weight in their decisions than it should have. A parent, a spouse, a close friend whose opinion feels like it holds the final vote on their life. They have been living inside an invisible enclosure built from the fear of their disapproval, and they have mistaken that enclosure for wisdom. He sees all of that and does not minimize it. The people they love matter to him, too. He made them for relationship, for community, for connection. That is not weakness, but he also made them with a calling that no other person can fully see or validate from the outside. And there will be moments when what he asks of them will not make sense to the people standing closest to them. There will be moments when their obedience requires disappointing someone they love. In those moments, they must decide gently but clearly who they are ultimately living for. He is not asking them to be unkind or dismissive toward the people in their lives. He is asking them to stop giving their opinions a seat. Only He was ever meant to hold. Those who truly love them and want what is best for them will come to understand eventually, even if they cannot see it yet. And even when they never fully understand, they will stand before Him one day. And He will not ask if their decisions made sense to everyone around them. He will ask whether they trusted Him enough to obey. So, they must release the grip other people's opinions have had on their decisions. Not with bitterness, not with pride, releasing it with the quiet confidence of someone who finally knows who they are living for, letting the fear of disappointing others take its proper place. Far behind the simple joy of pleasing Him, as they walk forward in that freedom, some of those closest to them will become their loudest encouragers. Once they see the fruit of their obedience simply because they could not see what He was doing while it was still hidden, that is not their failure or theirs. It is simply the nature of unseen work. Fruit convinces in ways that explanation never can, and He is far more interested in growing real fruit in their lives than He is in winning an argument on their behalf before the harvest comes. But He also wants to be honest with them. Some people will not come nearby no matter how much fruit grows. Some relationships are built on the followers staying exactly where they are, predictable, small, and easy to manage. When they grow, when they change, and finally say yes to what the Lord has been asking of them, certain people will feel that growth as a threat, even if they never say so out loud. That is no reason to shrink back. It is simply the cost of becoming who God created them to be. And God will be with them on both sides of that cost, comforting what is lost and filling what grows in its place. He wants them to notice something about the ones they carry in prayer. Their obedience does not only shape them, it shapes the path others walk beside them on. When they to live free instead of afraid, when they move instead of stall, they give the people they love permission to do the same. They become proof, simply by living it, that a life surrendered to God is not a smaller life. It is a fuller one. What they offer them cost them nothing but their willingness to walk forward. Now He wants them to hear something important about where they have been. The Lord does not waste anything. Not the hard seasons, not the painful chapters, not the mistakes they have carried like stones in their pockets, not the years that felt like they went in circles. None of it was wasted. None of it was outside His ability to redeem, and none of it was beyond His power to turn into something that serves their story and ultimately serves the purposes He has for them. The years they feel were lost to fear and delay are never beyond His redemption. He can take everything that happened during those dark years, every hesitation, every setback, every missed moment, and weave it into something that adds true depth to their calling instead of leaving a painful gap in their story. The pain they walk through does not disqualify them from what He has for them. It is quietly qualifying them in the ways they cannot yet see, because the people who need what they carry most are often the ones who need someone who has actually been through something real, someone who understands from the inside, someone who has not only heard about the valley, but has walked right through it. Their history is not a liability. It is part of their equipment, the very things they are most tempted to hide, the seasons they are most embarrassed by, the failures they wish they could erase. Those might be the very parts of their story that make what they carry most needed. Broken people do not need a perfect messenger. They need a real one. They need someone who has wrestled, who has doubted and come back, who has fallen and gotten back up. who has been afraid and moved anyway. That is the kind of testimony that changes a life, and that is the kind of story God has been writing in them through everything they have walked through. The Lord teaches a powerful truth about restoration, because it is not the same as starting over. Starting over erases what came before and begins again from nothing. Restoration is different. Divine restoration takes what was broken and makes it fully whole again, scars and all, and then uses those very scars as proof of what the Lord can do with a life that was willing to keep trusting Him. He is not in the business of pretending their wounds never happened. He is in the business of redeeming them, of making them part of their testimony rather than something they have to hide to be useful to anyone. Consider how a bone heals after it breaks. The place where it mends often becomes stronger than the bone around it, not weaker. The Lord works the same way in hearts. The places in them that broke and then healed under His hand are not their weakest places anymore. They have become some of the strongest because they carry both the memory of the wound and the proof of the mending. People who are still standing after being knocked down carry a kind of authority that people who have never been tested simply do not have. And that authority is part of what He wants to move through them now, so they can stop viewing their past as something they must overcome before He can use them. Instead, they can see it as something He has already been using to shape them into exactly what the people He is sending them to most need. Their past is part of their purpose. Their pain is part of their preparation. And every chapter of the story He has written in them, even those they wish were different, is exactly what He needs them to carry forward. He also wants to speak to the atmosphere of their lives right now, because something happens in the unseen places when they choose delay over obedience. It is not punishment, but simply the natural weight of misalignment. When they keep telling God not yet to what He has already said yes to, the air around their life begins to feel heavy, cloudy, congested, as though everything takes more effort than it should. Doors that should open feel stuck. Conversations that should flow feel awkward. Plans that should come together keep meeting resistance for no clear reason. Sometimes they have called that heaviness opposition. Sometimes it is, but sometimes, quietly, it is simply the accumulated weight of unresolved obedience, the spiritual residue of things God asks for that He did not yet receive. And the same way their delay creates that heaviness, their obedience lifts it. When they finally say yes to what He has been asking, when they take the step they have been avoiding, when they bring their actions into line with His instruction, something shifts, not always dramatically, not always visible to the natural eye, but there is a clearing, a lightness, a sense that what was blocked has begun to move again. They have felt that shift before. They know the difference between the grape peace that comes from genuine obedience and the numbness that comes from the avoidance. They know the difference between a heart that is truly at rest and a heart that has simply stopped listening because listening had grown too uncomfortable. He is inviting them back into alignment today. Today, be still, not through striving nor through trying harder or finally putting themselves together through sheer effort, but through the simple, clean, powerful act of saying yes. This alignment is the doorway to the atmosphere they have been longing for. That is where heaviness lifts, peace returns, and the holy momentum begins again. They do not have to manufacture that lightness. It comes naturally when their will aligns directly with His, just like light naturally floods a room the instant the door swings open. Believers declare trust in Him. If the Word speaks to their life right now, the Lord wants to speak to His children about time in a way they may not have fully considered. They know in their minds that life is short. They have heard it said often, and they have nodded along, but he wonders if it has truly settled into the deepest places of their hearts in a way that changes their daily decisions. On ordinary days, there is a difference between knowing something in the head and carrying it as a living truth in the heart. Time is precious, not in some cliché way, but in a real practical, urgent way. Every day that passes never comes back. Every season brings opportunities that are uniquely available within it and nowhere else. The person they could speak to today may not be in the same open space. Tomorrow, the door cracked open, now may be shut by the time they finally feel ready to walk through. The season of influence they stand in will not last forever in this exact way. Shape. The Lord is not trying to frighten you with this truth. He is trying to wake a holy urgency in you to pull you away from comfortable delays and toward intentional living. He wants you to look at your days differently, holding each day with a deep, grateful, the attention that says, this day matters. What you do today carries real weight and should be lived with purpose. That does not mean living in anxiety or constant pressure. It means being a good steward of the hours He gives you. It means being present to what He is asking of you today, instead of always living for an imagined future that will never arrive in exactly the way you picture it. One of the most freeing things you could ever do is decide to live fully in the present day, not tomorrow's version of yourself, where every fear is gone and every question is answered. Right now, with the faith you currently carry, with the gifts you currently hold, with the courage that is available to you in this very moment, if you choose to reach for it in the life you are actually living, not the one you keep waiting to begin. There is something else He wants you to understand about your obedience. It was never only about you. When He places a calling on a life, it is not for that person's benefit alone. It is for everyone that calling was meant to touch. There are people right now, some you have already met, and some you have not yet met, who are waiting for what you carry. There are people stuck in the very place you were stuck before He brought you through it. People sitting in darkness they have already walked out of. People carrying questions their story already holds the answer to. People who feel entirely alone in something they understand from the inside because they have lived it. Every day they delay their obedience silently is another day those people wait without what they need. Another day they remain stuck in something they could help others move through. Another day they feel alone in something the believer could help them carry. Does that change how they see their hesitation? Sometimes the most powerful reason to obey is not about them at all. Sometimes they need to stop thinking only of their own fear and start thinking about the people standing on the other side of their assignment is connected to other people's breakthroughs. Their willingness to step forward creates a path for others to follow behind them. Their obedience is not only personal, it ripples outward in ways they will never be able to fully track or the measure, touching the ones they carry in prayer and many they will never even meet. That is exactly why God keeps bringing it back to them. He sees what their yes will do on earth, and He knows it is too important to leave sitting on the table. Observe the turning of the seasons, how winter never argues with spring. Things simply give way when their time is finished. There is an appointed turning coming to their life, a shift from the season they have been standing in toward the one God has already prepared for them. They do not have to force that turning by striving. They only have to stop resisting it, letting what has run its course finish running, and let what He is bringing next begin to rise in its place. The turning is not something they manufacture. It is something they walk into the way they walk from one room into another simply by moving forward. The Lord wants them to think about a desert crossing because some of them have felt like they have been wandering for a long time without arriving anywhere. The desert feels endless when they are inside, and at the same stretch of ground repeating itself day after day until they start to wonder if they are moving at all. But the desert is not where God sends them to lose them. It is a place He crosses with them on the crosses with them, the way to somewhere else, a place where they learn to depend on bread that falls fresh every morning instead of the bread they stored up themselves, a place where their trust in His provision becomes the very thing that prepares them for what is waiting on the other side of the sand. For those in a desert season right now, the Lord assures them the crossing has a far side. They will not wander forever. Every step they take, even the steep ones that feel repetitive and unremarkable, is carrying them closer to the edge of it, even on the days when the horizon looks exactly the same as it did yesterday. He has not lost track of them in the sand. He walks every single mile of it with them and knows precisely where their desert ends. So they must hold today with both hands. Do not let it slip past them unattended while they wait for a more convenient one to arrive. The harvest they are hoping for is not hiding in some distant, more comfortable future. It is hidden inside the ordinary obedience available to them right now, today, in the lives they are actually living. He invites them to talk about endurance, because beginning is one thing, but continuing is another. Some of them have started before. They took that brave first step, and then something happened that was harder than they expected. A setback, a disappointment, a moment where it did not work the way they hoped, and that became the moment they pulled back, and the pause became permanent. What was meant to be a momentary regrouping became a full withdrawal. Now they are here again, feeling His invitation rise once more, feeling that familiar stirring, and part of them wants to respond. But another part remembers the last time, and that memory makes saying yes again feel harder than it should. He wants to speak to that place in them today. He honors that they tried before, and He honors the courage it took. He was there when it got hard. He saw them stumble and is not asking them to pretend it did not hurt, but that setback was not the end of their story. A stumble was not a disqualification. It was part of the journey, teaching them what they needed to learn and removing whatever would have hindered them later. The season is different, not because the circumstances are guaranteed to be easier, but because they are different. They carry far more now than they carried the last time they tried. They has been shaped by what they walked through, and that shaping is exactly what this next season needs from them, so they cannot let the memory of a Christ past stumble become the reason they never fully try again. They rise and step forward again. They let the history of what they survived become the very testimony that fuels their next chapter. Now consider this practical truth, something small that quietly steals more dreams than almost anything else. The word tomorrow. It sounds so innocent, like the friend offering relief without demanding anything from them. It lets them agree with the Lord in their heart without ever having to move their feet. And that is exactly why it is so dangerous. Every time they tell themselves they will do it tomorrow, they make a small agreement with delay. And once they make that agreement, it becomes easy to make it again until tomorrow becomes their default answer to anything that requires courage. Then one day they look up and months or years have passed, and the thing the Lord placed in front of them is still sitting exactly where it was, untouched, unclaimed, waiting. Yet, the Lord does not want their story full of almost all the times they were almost ready, almost brave enough, almost willing to trust. That word almost is one of the saddest words in a life of faith, because it means they stood at the edge of something real and let it slip away. Today is when that pattern ends, not because every fear has gone silent, but because the Lord is calling and His grace is available to them today. Not only tomorrow, real faith rarely looks like the picture they have carried. In their minds, the confident smile, the unshaken certainty that everything will work out exactly right. Real faith often feels like stepping off a ledge. In the dark, hoping ground is closer than it seems. It feels like speaking while their voice is still shaking, moving while their hands still tremble, starting while their mind is and still full of questions. What makes it faith is not how steady they feel. What makes it faith is who they are trusting. If their yes is directed toward Him, it counts. Even if their knees are weak and their hearts are racing twice the normal speed, the Lord rarely comes as expected. He did not come to one of His prophets in the earthquake or in the fire, but in a still, small voice. After the noise had finally passed, He did not call His first followers from a throne room or a temple court. He found them by the shore mending nets, going about an ordinary day, and He simply said, "Follow me." And they left what they were holding and walked after Him. The call rarely arrives with thunder. Most of the time, it comes as a quiet nudge, a thought that keeps returning, an ordinary next step that does not feel dramatic enough to come from heaven. We must not dismiss it as small. Some of the greatest things He has ever done on the earth began with someone obeying a very simple instruction. So here is what He asks you and me to do before anything else. Once His words end, we must take minutes to sit quietly before Him. We ask Him one honest question. What is the single step He has been asking us to take that we have been avoiding? Not 5 steps, not a whole list, just one, the one that has been waiting the longest. Then we listen. We wait. When He shows us, we make it specific. Give out at a moment and do it today. If not today, then this week. And let this be the day something in our lives actually changes. The life He has for us is not a distant dream waiting in some far-off, more convenient future. It is available right now on the other side of the obedience we have been postponing, and it is richer and fuller than the courting life we have lived in the shadow of our delay. He has been calling us toward it for a long time, and today, once more, He is asking us, will we say yes? Not almost yes, not yes, but later, a genuine yes, the kind that moves our feet and lifts our hands toward what He has already shown us. Rise, His beloved. The season of staying still has passed, and the season of movement is here. He is with us. His strength is sufficient. His love does not change with our performance and everything the strength for their next step is already placed inside them by the one who designed them for this very moment. They must take that step moving forward to discover, just as so many before them did, that the God who calls them is also the God who carries them through the single step of the journey from this moment until their very last breath. They say amen. If they are ready to rise and to walk forward with Him, and He wants to address something they have not spoken aloud to anyone, the version of themselves that they perform for the world, capable, composed, moving through their days with enough competence to avoid any suspicion. That act is exhausting them. They have worn the mask so long they nearly forgotten that it is just a costume. He is not asking them to shed it in front of everyone. He is simply asking them to stop wearing it when they are alone with Him. Indeed, they do not have to come to His feet fully put together. Bring the unfinished version. Bring the version that does not know what lies next. That is exactly who He is, asking to step forward because polished people are not what this season requires. This season requires someone willing to be seen exactly as they are and trust Him enough to move anyway. That grace is available to them right now. This work runs on viewer support only for exclusive member-only content. Scan the QR code or see the pinned comment. God bless them. When the night falls on their heart with darkness and the world feels cold once more. Soft music. He is right there in the dark, holding them tight through all pain. Music plays. Voices sing. Soft melody. Chords play. Gentle song. Soft chords. Sweet singing. Music swells. Worship rises. Melody continues. When the night falls on their heart and the world feels cold once more, He is right there in the dark, holding them tight through every painful moment. Oh, music and singing. Oh, soft music. If their path should close, chords continue. When the night falls on their heart and the world feels cold, with song. Again, He is right there in the dark, holding them close through every pain. Soft music, gentle singing. Music fades.